Is liberty dying where you live? Escape to Keene at freekeene.com.
Welcome. We're going to get started with the direct action panel. And this is a panel that I'm going to do again at Liberty Forum coming up here in February. I was asked to, the Liberty Forum organizers said, well, Ian, do you want to do a civil disobedience panel? Because as I was saying yesterday, I'm kind of the go-to guy to host a civil disobedience panel. I'm good with a microphone, and I've done civil disobedience, so that makes sense. But it's been done so many times, and while civil disobedience is important, I think it's only one portion of a package of a larger idea, which is direct action. And I think civil disobedience is part of that, and direct action can mean a lot of different things. As you're going to hear from our experts here today on the panel, of course, the presenter of the panel is my nomination for Activist of the Year, at least probably from all across New Hampshire, but we like to do a little fun Activist of the Year here in Keene, and I'll be nominating James Cleveland because he is, as you can tell, Robin Hood here in Keene. And if you haven't heard about Robin Hooding, it's been going on for years, and I don't see Lauren Canario in the room, but if you got to meet Lauren yesterday, she was the creator of Robin Hooding, and she started leaving envelopes on people's cars here in Keene after putting money in their meter to let them know they were saved from getting a parking ticket. James took that, and Jason Repsher actually did it prior to James coming here. There have been different activists that have kind of stepped up over the years and done it solo, but James really kind of brought it together in a way that never happened before, and brought a bunch of people involved into this Robin Hooding process, going downtown, finding the meter maids, and then walking in front of them, depositing change to prevent people from getting tickets. Over 5,000, maybe even 6,000, maybe more than that now, 6,000 tickets this year so far have been prevented from being written by the Robin Hooders. This is big, really important activism. It's really good stuff. People love it. I mean, nobody likes getting a ticket, so it's just been wonderful. So I think that's one thing you're going to obviously hear about on the direct action panel, because Robin Hooding isn't illegal in New Hampshire. In some places it is. In some bigger cities it is illegal. So direct action doesn't necessarily have to do just with civil disobedience. I think civil disobedience is one aspect of that. So I hope you're going to hear a lot more, and James is going to tell you more about our great panelists here. And again, thanks for coming to Keenevention. More to come here today.
Hey, thanks for the introduction. As Ian mentioned, I am James Robin Hood Cleveland, and I guess joining me today, we have three other individuals. All these guys have all done Robin Hooding. We've all done CopBlocking. So I mean, this is really an all-star team of activists up here who have, hit the streets and, done things to, I guess, get the message of liberty out. And that's something that Ian was touching on. So, direct action to me is, you're going out and you're doing something just to get the message out, like directly to people. And it could be illegal, like civil disobedience. Like Rich Paul was definitely doing, getting his message out during the 420s. If you've ever watched any of those videos, he was out there, with the bullhorn and shouting and definitely trying to get people's attention and tell them that, there is nothing wrong with smoking cannabis. And that's what I'm doing right now. Come join me. And, like watching some of the history here in Keene, before I moved, it was very inspirational. And people like Derek J. and, he would go out and he would do things to get the message out. But I guess I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves here.
Yes, I'm Jason Repsher, and I've been living in Keene for just a little under 3 years now.
You want to? So Jason, he's a Robin Hooder currently. He also participates in CopBlock, and one thing that he does that I really enjoy, he is probably the most prolific person that does Don't Take the Plea deal. You've been doing that for...
Yeah, about 2.5 years now. I believe Don't Take the Plea has been going on for probably a little over 3 years, but that was before I got to Keene.
And would you explain what that is?
Yeah, it's basically this flyer right here, and they actually have some up there as well. But basically, people that go into district court for arraignment, various charges that have been racked up on them, whether it's just traffic tickets, whatever. It could be assault, it could be... lately, there's a lot of underage drinking and charges and open containers and ridiculous things like that, mostly victimless type of crimes. But essentially what Don't Take the Plea deal is it informs, it's not this absolute thing, at least to me, it's not that people don't have to take the plea, or it's just basically, it informs them, gives them their options. It teaches them essentially that, which is no surprise to us, that the state's basically extorting money from you, and that's the whole, I guess, the whole point of the plea. Everything is pretty much based around people taking that plea, because the system really can sustain itself if 10-15% of the people stop taking the plea deal. So that's basically what this is encouraging people to do. And it's also used as leverage. People could always turn down the plea deal and take it at a later time. And a lot of times they'll offer the people better deals or whatnot. So there's a lot of, let me see.
One thing that I like about Don't Take the Plea, I've only done it a handful of times, but a lot of people, so basically you standing in district court and people are coming in and they're waiting for the court to open, so you're handing out flyers. And I've had some really interesting conversations, and it's like you have a captive audience because you're talking to one person who's asking you questions, and then everyone else is kind of, like listening in. And usually when one person takes the flyer, I mean, everyone else wants it too. And I always sell it as, do you want something to read while you wait? And people are like, oh, okay. And, I always felt, I usually get really positive interactions.
Oh, yeah. I've always, the people always generally have really good, they are very receptive to the information. And at one point I always like to make to people, I like to at least let them know that they didn't do anything wrong, and obviously to us that's common sense, right? But people get to this system, they go through the courts and they actually walk in there with their head down. They really believe they did something wrong. And a lot of these people, like I said, are in there for victimless crimes. They didn't do anything, and they're just getting money extorted from them. So I think it serves a purpose just in that, even if they do take the plea deal, just that they know that they're basically being screwed. And, they should be a little upset about that. So I think the more people you get a little riled up, and, they're basically our victims of the state. So
yeah, and I guess we'll introduce the other two. So we have Eric Freerock. You want to tell everyone who you are?
I'm Eric Freerock. I am the host of the CopBlock radio show, which is on Wednesday nights at FPRN Radio. I'm a native of Keene, though I've been gone for the past 8 years, and now I'm back, so that's always nice.
And I guess Graham?
I'm Graham Colson. I'm a New Hampshire native. Been living in Keene for about almost 3 years now. I've been involved in Robin Hood of Keene, Keene CopBlock, and to some extent the 420 rallies back in the day.
Yeah, and of course, as I mentioned, I'm James. I've done a lot of direct action. I've done a little bit of Don't Take the Plea deal. I've done a fair amount of CopBlock, cop accountability, and of course Robin Hooding. And I always talk about Robin Hooding. To me, it's civil obedience. So I'm bringing people into compliance with this ridiculous ordinance. And like a lot of people will be like, oh, I really like your civil disobedience. But if you think about it, it's really the reverse. I'm trying to make sure that everyone's in compliance with this this ordinance that I feel is really ridiculous in how it's enforced. And it's a very powerful form of activism in that every save I make to me is a win, because it's one less case of the state being involved in someone's life. And I'm not as opposed to, let's say, management of parking as I'm opposed to, I don't think that parking your vehicle should be a crime. And I don't see anyone being harmed by that activity. I guess there is an argument to be had that the business is, but there's another argument that if you get a parking ticket, it kind of sours your experience of the whole downtown. I mean, you come downtown, you come shopping, you spend a few hours in the downtown area. Let's say you've had a good time, you're going to enjoy the experience, and then the very last thing you see, you got a parking ticket. And to me, it really sours the experience. And as we found out, people really like being saved from parking tickets. We get donations. I get thank you cards. I've had a girl hug me on the street. Yep. I'd say very conservatively, so I've had a lot of people over this last year help me out with Robin Hooding, and unfortunately not all of them could be here, but conservatively, we've probably saved at least 7,000 vehicles this year. And maybe the closer number is like 9,000. It's kind of hard to tell, but It's been very successful, and as I mentioned, all three of these gentlemen have helped out. And I guess do we have any questions from the audience?
Well, on that note,
Go up to the microphone.
as you're saying, having the parking down there kind of sours the experience. Ever since I got my license, I didn't shop downtown because I hated parking at the meters. I'd never have change, or they'd end up coming through with a parking ticket. So it's like, forget it. I'm not gonna shop downtown because there's no reason to. Because if it's just gonna be such a hassle, why bother?
Two things. One question is, what is the source of the funding?
So initially, I put up the funding for Robin Hooding. I bought, I don't know, a few $100s of change, but since January, the donations have more than covered the change costs. So it's to the point now it's a self-funded activity. And what was your second question?
Okay, the second one's not a question. It's just an argument. You were talking about the negative experience receiving a ticket downtown. Another argument against it is similar to the airlines charging a baggage fee for overweight baggage. While they charge you for the overweight baggage, you still are allowed to bring the excess baggage on board. So it's not affecting airline safety or anything like that. The baggage still goes along with you. So them charging the fee doesn't change anything about the airplane. It still flies. Same thing with the meters. If a person is parked in front of somewhere and the meter's expired, and you put money into it, there's no difference in how many parking spaces are available or not available. The only difference is the state gets to collect some money.
That's true, and that's a really good point. So even if a ticket is issued to a expired vehicle, it's not like the so-called problem is fixed. I mean, the car is still there. It's still occupying a spot. And to me, it's really outrageous. They don't even enforce during times where it possibly could make sense. If you go downtown and try to, find a spot at dinner time, it's after 5 p.m., there's no parking. And of course, they don't enforce then. They're enforcing at 8:30 on a Tuesday morning when there's 20 spots open and there's one car with an expired meter. And, now we're going to issue that one a ticket.
Or 8:30 on a Saturday morning when there's like 600 spots open.
Yeah, and a lot of people that live downtown, they park in that Gilbo lot, and then they'll try to wake up and move their cars. So for a long time, like at 8 a.m., they'd be out there. As soon as the ordinance went into effect, they're out there they'd get like 30 tickets. But so, I would be out there every Saturday morning, and I would already hit everything up, and she'd show up, the enforcer would, and there's nothing for you, but. So that was a really good feeling. You got any?
Yeah, I mean, you make actually the perfect point that somehow the meters somehow creates more parking, right? I mean, when you look at it, I mean, the city has been in control of the roads and the parking all these years. They're the ones that have failed to provide adequate parking. So now they're double dinging people. Now they're charging. They're essentially taking over these spaces that, if it was done privately, a business would have at least the opportunity to say, yeah, this is for 3-hour parking, but only for this shopping center and whatnot. But yeah, the private market would be able to handle it much, much better. And the city, they failed. They failed to provide adequate parking. So now they're trying to penalize, and it doesn't create any more parking at the end of the day. So it's ridiculous.
Which is kind of funny, because if you think about it, every other business in town has to provide its own parking. So like Hannaford's, it's not like there's metered parking there. But the stores downtown, somehow the city is responsible for their parking, and they don't get to have any say in their parking spots.
Yeah.
So I didn't want, I guess trying to go back to the direct action thing, I think one of the really good things about direct action, when you're out there, you're meeting and interacting with people, there is some negativity that you'll get, but there's also a lot of people that will come up and tell you they like what you're doing. When you're out Robin Hooding, people will, as I mentioned, like hug you. They'll tell you thank you. They'll give you money. I've been out cop blocking on the weekends, and a lot of college kids really liked what we were doing. And yeah, I think it's a good idea that you guys, they like that we're out there providing an objective record, trying to have some level of accountability for the police here. And even like I mentioned earlier on, the don't take the plea. I mean, a lot of people are in there, and I talked to one lady, and she was telling me kind of her story, but she said, "Oh, I wish I had gotten your flyer earlier. I'd already taken the plea," and she was kind of bummed out. But I think a lot of people realize in that don't take the plea that they're not like they kind of get it, like they haven't done anything wrong, and that's one of the real keys, I think, to having a direct action. Like Robin Hooding, if you're going out and you're talking to people, like unless it's like the college kids, like open container violations. Parking tickets are something that the average person probably has received or is likely to receive. The average person, average adult, is not likely to be, busted for smoking cannabis or having an open container. And I feel that if you are going to do direct action, you got to kind of pick a group that will kind of like what you're doing, like the college kids. CopBlock is kind of, well, the police are focused there, so that's where we are. But the result of that is these are the people that are impacted by the state, and we're there trying to help them out as much as we can. Go ahead, Daryl.
Okay, so first off, before I ask my question, the comparison to airline baggage fees isn't exactly a fair comparison. I actually used to work for an airline, and there's a weight balance issue, so they have to know where the heavy luggage is going, and there's a calculation of the average person plus the carry-on is a certain amount of weight, and then during the wintertime it's another certain amount of weight. So there's all sorts of calculations that go into it other than just, oh, this bag's 52 pounds, this one's 47, so we have to charge you for this. But the question that I have, and I actually didn't know this until a little over a week ago. Several years ago, the Keene City Council drafted a letter that was basically the sense of the city is that cannabis should be decriminalized, and they voted to send that to the state legislature. And I found out from Councilor Roberts, who is also a state rep, that the reason that letter was never sent to Concord is because the 420 rallies started right after the city council voted to send that letter, and then they quietly voted to rescind their decision to send that letter. So what are some of the unseens of some of the action that each one of you do? Or do you even know what the unseens are, because it could be something that nobody finds out about until 4 years later?
I can't really speak on the unseens. It's kind of hard to know like what your action may have caused. But I can tell you, like Robin Hooding, for example, parking is now an issue in the city, in people's minds. Even in the city budget, they said that parking is an issue that needs to be addressed. So I feel like that we have been successful in that. Parking is now a major issue here in Keene, and I'm not sure what would be unseen. Do you have any comments about, let's say, CopBlock?
Not that I know of. I'm sure that we come up once in a while. During the Pumpkin Fest, last I heard, we were part of the roll call not to talk to us, and there was a lot of officers who refused to say anything even when we asked for badge number and name and whatnot, and a lot of them were from surrounding towns, and they were under the direction of the Keene police not to talk to us.
Yeah, one form of action, direct action, that Freerock organized and put together. So there was a checkpoint in, I think it was Walpole, New Hampshire, and Freerock made an event. He found out about it. He kind of organized people to go out there and hold signs and let people know that there's a checkpoint ahead. And I felt that was really powerful. So I was out there. Graham was out there. Actually, all of us were out there. But I know for a fact that there was one vehicle that stopped, and it was some young people in there. And as soon as I went up to the vehicle, I could smell marijuana, and I told them, like, oh, there's a checkpoint ahead. If you want to go, here's how you detour if you want to go around it. And like they thanked me, and it felt really good to. If I had not been there, I'm 100% sure that those 3 young people would have been arrested and their lives would have been impacted. And they actually drove by later in the night and they yelled thank you. And so, I mean, that did feel really good, but...
Yeah, they weren't very strategic about that checkpoint because, like, the detour was just a side road that just paralleled it and just went around it. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about direct action. So when you're out there doing things, and then you may do something for months and months and months, but then finally something will happen, and you'll see kind of how you made a difference. Like, we would put these green flyers on people's cars that were ticketed, and we probably put hundreds of them out. And finally, some lady contacted me and said that she had gotten, like, I don't know, a couple tickets, and they had gone into delinquency, so the fine kept going up. And so she took them to court, and she lost the court case. However, she was able to get charity. She didn't pay the fine. She instead volunteered. And, like, to me, that was so powerful. Like, wow, because you put so much effort into something. And, like, media production, you don't really know who's watching it, especially something like Cheshire TV. You put out a local access television show. You don't know, like, who's watching it. Like, I found out yesterday with Dave Ridley that the city manager, John McLean, actually watches Black Sheep Rising, or at least he had watched it, which was very interesting. But, so that's definitely one of the great benefits. Do you have any thoughts on that, Graham?
Get back to me on that one.
Okay. What about you?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's tough to measure the effect, but I think it's all about just planting seeds. People will find whatever form of activism it is that they enjoy, like in the general public, say, if they are passionate about the parking issue. I think that information could lead them to further information and so on when they're ready to get to that point. And I guess the one thing I've learned at the end of the day, it's sort of people really, you could, give them the whole spiel and trying to convince them, but you really have to just give them the seat and they have to find their own way, because I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but people want to be the ones to come to the ideas of liberty or whatever. They don't want somebody else to convince them of it. So all you could do is really throw it out there and allow them to find their own way. At least that's my understanding. So.
One thing too, I think that's important to point out. So if you're going to go out and do something, it doesn't have to be controversial. One of the things that I think Ian is really good at is he just goes out and he hands out literature, and some people take it, some people don't, and that's a really good way to get out your message, and you can kind of see the impact because you'll go out with a huge stack of flyers and you pass them all out, and it does feel good. People may read it, and you can even, I would consider doing a sine wave direct action. I mean, you can stand there, like I guess in support of Rich Paul, every Sunday we've been going out, a couple of us, and doing a sine wave, trying to tell people, that, hey, our friend is in jail for marijuana, and we don't appreciate that. So we're out here every Sunday for an hour holding signs, letting people know that.
Yeah, I think consistency is one of those things that drives up the value, because doing Robin Hooding in the past, if it's a day here, a day there, it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But when you start doing it on a daily basis, then suddenly you're on Good Morning America.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So you can go out and you can do all this actions, right? And if you're consistent, you just keep doing it. Eventually, the media will come. I mean, the whole Robin Hooding thing blew up, and I always tell the story. So my parents had no idea what I was doing up here. My mom goes to work and she says, "Do you know what Robin Hooding is?" And she's like, "Yeah." I had mentioned it to her, even before I started doing it. And she's like, "Yeah, I know what that is." And her coworker's like, "I saw your son on television." And she's like, "What?" And so she immediately goes and watches the clip, and she's calling me on the phone, and so.
Yeah, along those lines, it is pretty funny because when the city attacks or when they actually give attention to that, that's really what blows it up. I mean, obviously, if I'm the city and I don't want to give the attention to us, the best thing to do is ignore it. But it's funny, they attack, and when they do that, it draws so much attention, and it actually it's sort of a win-win either way. I mean, obviously you don't always want to draw controversy to yourself, but yeah, like I said, but when in the event you do draw controversy, it blows up and you get the message to a lot more people, so it's a win-win.
With like the consistency, we've been, since probably early August, I think we've been out doing CopBlock every Friday, except last week. Last week was the first time we've missed a Friday. And it's great because we were here as soon as the college kids came back for the fall semester, so we made ourselves known, and now like we're riding down the street and everybody's like, yeah, CopBlock. And one of the guys who goes out with us, he gets like pictures with the ladies like all night long. It's really funny. But even right then, one of the things that ended up happening is that the cops kind of like ignored us for the first 4 or 5 weeks because they've been used to cop blocking happening, but it hasn't been happening on a consistent basis. And then suddenly like week 6, 7, and 8 roll around and they suddenly take an interest in us, which was odd, but they were basically following us around all night, which was great because that means they weren't writing tickets for alcohol possession or anything. So but going back to like the don't take a plea thing, I was at arraignment a few weeks ago and there were 27 underage alcohol possessions in one day. And the thing that they do is they make it sound like if you don't take the plea, you are going to lose your license for 6 months or a year. So they're like, no, if you plead guilty, we'll just give you the fine and you won't lose your license. When right there, they're like, well, that sounds like a great deal. Yep. When really they don't even have to make them work for it. They get their money, which is really all they're after anyways, and they don't go to trial. They don't actually have to prove the case. So
you make a great point with that. I actually kind of left that out, but yeah, they really do scare people into taking the plea. A lot of times, just from the get-go, cops have a tendency to rack up a lot of charges. They'll say, 2 counts of obstruction, 2 counts of this, that. Next thing you know, you're facing all these charges. And, that now all of a sudden they come across like the good guys. They're like, hey, this is what we'll do for you. We'll drop the obstruction charge. We'll drop all these. So all you'll face is this and this fine. And people like happily pay, and they almost want to thank their abusers or captors. Oh, thank you. You're only going to do this to me. But meanwhile, you did nothing wrong in the first place. So yeah, I mean, they have a tendency to do that. Even with speeding tickets and so on, they'll say, hey, I'll drop this down to 5 over. And you're like, oh, thank you, officer, for that ticket. I appreciate it. So yeah.
Yeah. So just that one day, if you add it up, it was over 10 grand in fines that they collected just in one day of arraignments. That
was a crazy morning. I was there.
Was.
Yeah.
One of the sad things is that every single person besides myself who did not have a lawyer pled guilty. Like, it was crazy. The only people who pled not guilty were people who already had lawyers, but everybody else just pled guilty, paid the fine, took whatever punishment was doled out to them, and that was that. It was kind of sad.
You had a funny interaction with one of the bailiffs up there, right?
Yeah, the bailiff. There's like this door where all the bureaucrats walk into to go back to the offices, but it's right in the hall where everybody congregates. And since there were 78 cases that day, it was a pretty packed house. A guy comes in and walks over towards that corner where the bailiff is standing, and he's like, no, sir, you can't come over here. And he like touched the guy, and the guy's like, don't touch me. And the bailiff's like, I'll touch you if I want. Like, it's ridiculous. It's like,
this bailiff, he's quite the character. Human? Tell me about it. Yeah, he actually, that day, he almost arrested me for telling him, I was like, you carry yourself, pretty seriously. And just for that, he was like, about to like lunge at me. So yeah, this guy's pretty crazy. But anywho.
Did you have a question, Russell?
Yeah, well, first I want to say thanks for what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. With the Robin Hooding, have you talked to the business owners on, that are affected? What do they think?
I have spoken to a few of them, and it's kind of one of those things because of the controversial nature that Robin Hooding has become. I mean, they kind of don't want to openly support it now, so that's definitely an issue. But a lot of the businesses do like what we're doing, and I don't want to name names, I guess, but Graham and myself have gotten free food at a business. I've talked a lot with the business owners, and I try to explain to them that I don't know what the solution to the parking so-called problem is, but there has to be a better way to do it, and people can really appreciate that. And once you talk, I think a lot of people too. I try, if I'm out there, if someone comes up to me and they have concerns or comments about what I'm doing, I do try to be receptive and listen to their side of the story, and then I try to respond to it. And usually, if you do that, people, you can kind of show them the way, if you will. Maybe they won't walk away mad. That's kind of my goal. Like, let's just have a discussion and, hear my side of the story. And I would say, generally speaking, that usually works with 99% of people. And, a lot of people say, oh, I never thought about that. And I've even told people that, and they've told me things. And so, it has changed my mind on when you're out there.
So when I went with the newspaper, 8 years ago, I probably asked every business, and half of them wanted to just get rid of it because they were losing business to the people outside of downtown. Then the other half had various things. But so, that was kind of interesting. That's before you guys did this stuff. Yeah,
one thing I always tell people, to me, it's like a state-controlled monopoly. So, if you have, let's say the Soviet Union owns all the factories, if you just flip them immediately to more freedom, I hate to say that it has to be in phases, but it kind of does. And I've told people that, I don't think that if they immediately did away with the meters, it would necessarily be a good thing. But it's a city government-created problem. I mean, they've been managing the parking since 1950s, and before that, there were no meters. I mean, the population of Keene really hasn't increased that drastically, and somehow they managed all these years without parking meters. And there are a lot of places where the downtowns did away with their meters, and it wasn't like a disaster. But so I definitely do think that would be a good. I'm kind of tapped out on my energies. I'm committed to all these things, but if someone wanted to take that ball and run with it, talk to the businesses, that'd be really, I think, a powerful thing to do.
I've recently seen some meters on a street that I had no idea had meters over on Ralston.
Yes.
That's kind of have they ever enforced those meters?
Yes, I have a picture I took with my cell phone because I couldn't believe it. There was a ticket there.
Yeah, it's like this street, there's no reason to have metered parking because there's always empty spots. There's maybe one car at a meter or something, but it's not like it's a major hub or anything. It's just like a random street to have meters on.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, first I wanted to say that I have been really inspired by all of the activists in this room since I became acquainted with the New Hampshire activists. And every time I'm here, I go home inspired, and I end up beating myself up because there's not a support community where I live, and I don't feel comfortable doing the kinds of direct action that you guys do for the same reason that I wouldn't want to be a salesperson in a store, because I feel uncomfortable approaching people unsolicited.
Solution, move to New Hampshire.
Yeah. I'm looking for an American wife, okay? Yeah. So if you have any daughters.
There you go.
But I have been able to find ways to work around that, and I think one of the easiest ways to do it is with agorism, because just in setting up my agorist business, I put the word agora in the business name, and that way I feel like I'm able to have conversations with people who wanted to be associating with me in the first place. We get to have conversations about why it's so difficult to do business with my licensed competitors, etc. So I don't think you have to be out on the streets, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on alternatives.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. It can be uncomfortable going out and talking to people, handing out literature, doing Robin Hooding. I'd say it's very uncomfortable when I first started, even going up to police officers and being like, hey, I'm going to film you. It is an uncomfortable position to put yourself in. And I guess my recommendation to you, if you are interested in direct action, you don't have to start. You can kind of take baby steps and, maybe go out and, kind of force yourself to pass out literature. And it's like anything that you do. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the better you get. You shouldn't go out and expect that you're going to be, an all-star. You're going to be the best at doing it. And I guess going to your thought on the community, so, I mean, I did a little bit of activism. So I'm originally I was born in Missouri, but I pretty much grew up in the Atlanta area. And I did like no activism there. I mean, I would try to convince people like, oh, let's go do a sine wave. And like no one wanted to do it. And it really does kill your motivation. And like I moved to Keene and I wasn't really planning on doing anything here either. But then the community, so Kate Ager, of CopBlock, she put out an event like, hey, just come out on a Tuesday night. We're going to go hit the streets, do some CopBlock. And I showed up and there's like 10 people there and it was so motivating. Like, wow, there's people here that want to do things. And so the community definitely does make a big impact. And it's important to, if you're going to go do something and you propose an idea, people here, at least in the Keene area, they're willing to say, hey, that's a good idea. Let's go do it. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Like, you never know. Like, I didn't think that Robin Hooding would become as big as it's become. And it's almost like thinking about it now, it's like, wow, I can't believe this. And I may go to the New Hampshire Supreme Court over Robin Hooding. Like, I never would have thought that.
Oh yeah, I was along lines of that. Yeah, I mean, people have all different skills and traits, and yeah, and that's fine. If being like a man on the street type interviewer, in your face type of person isn't your thing, then yeah, like I said, everybody's good at different things, and yeah, I think it fits right in. So I mean, and if you can't move to Keene or New Hampshire or whatever, I think yeah, just networking and being out there is important, and you could do that from anywhere. I think it's been just important to get yourself out there just so people can vouch for you. They know who you are, because it's kind of like once you take that red pill, pretty much you're a lot more vulnerable than you've ever been, and it's kind of like for protection in a sense, not in a violent sense, but just so people know who you are, and it just gives you more leverage, I guess, against the system or the state. So
yeah, I mean, I know how you feel being in a place where there's nothing happening. Like, I tried to organize people to get together to CopBlock and whatnot, and even when Pete Air came through on a tour before Liberty Forum last year, there were 20 people on the Facebook page that they're showing up. I was the only person to show up. Where was that? Columbus, Ohio. Out of 1 million people, and I was the only person to show up, which was nice because I had his ear for an hour and we talked about stuff, and he was living in Keene at the time, so it's like, well, I'm from Keene, so we had a lot to talk about. But that's basically when I decided, well, since there's nothing going on, I'm just going to start the radio show, because the show there wasn't one. So that's basically what I could do while being outside of New Hampshire at the time. And it just kind of kicked off from there. But then when I got here, there's all of the activists here, so I can go out and do stuff. And even then it's awkward, and still watching them sometimes is like, I'm not sure how far I can push this, but it might always be awkward. It might just be one of those things that you just have to force yourself to do sometimes, but yeah, it gets better as time goes on. Like the first day of Robin Hooding, it was like the most fun I had in years. It was great.
Yeah, and it's important too to realize it's so like if you take I have a uncle and 2 cousins that are police officers. When they start, they're nervous too. When they pull someone over that first time, I mean, they're nervous, but you just keep doing it and you get good at it, like I mentioned. And you don't have to start, like maybe you can do it what you feel is comfortable, you're comfortable doing. So you don't have to start, like now I'll film police from 5 feet away. It's just natural to me now, but maybe before I'd keep my distance, and you just get more and more comfortable with it. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, this is fortunately a problem I've never experienced growing up in New Hampshire, because, I mean, I didn't find out about Liberty through Mises.org and all that. I mean, like, I met people like Ian and Pete Ayer of CopBlock, and there's just, you want to do something out here for activism, it just happens. there's never a lack of people or anything like that.
One of the advantages, too, I was kind of thinking when Repsher and Freerock were talking about don't take the plea and these people getting punished, one of the nice things about direct action as opposed to civil disobedience is, you are kind of low risk. It's unlikely you're going to get arrested. And there are a few things I'm willing to get arrested for, but I really don't want to go to jail. I mean, there's a few things I'd fall on the sword for. I've tried filming in 3 court lobbies, and the bailiffs freaked out and threw a fit, and I even learned from Dave Ridley on that. So he kind of like backs up away from the state agents. That's what I did, and then I made my stand at the door. Like I held my ground until that last second and I had an escape route where they're saying, okay, you're under arrest, and okay, now I'm leaving. You know what I mean? So you definitely can be smart about your activism, and you don't have to go to jail to be a good activist. I don't want to go to jail. I mean, I don't feel that it would be a good use of my time, and it doesn't sound fun to me, but...
Yeah, there seems to be a stereotype about activism in Keene. They're like, oh, move to Keene and go to jail for your activism. Like, have any of you guys been arrested in the last year? Well, oh yeah, you got arrested at a checkpoint. Repsher, what about you?
Yeah, no, I've never been arrested, and I've come close so many times, so I've been lucky in that sense. So
yeah, and Repsher was always a big motivation. Like that case where I guess Repsher like riled them all up in district court on the second floor, and then Derek went up there, and then he got arrested. I mean, the first part of that story is Repsher's up there filming him, and they're like, okay, you get out of here, you're going to be arrested. And so, I mean, you don't have to be arrested.
Derek goes up there, like 10 seconds, like no warning, no nothing, and like he just calls their bluff. Like they're like, hey, yeah, the sign on the wall says this, and he goes up to the sign, and he's like, where's the sign on the wall? And he points to it, and they're like, that's it, and they arrest him. So it's like,
do you have a question, ma'am?
Yeah. I was wondering, what is the end goal of Robin Hooding, and how does it help increase liberty in New Hampshire?
So I would argue that, in my opinion, it already has increased liberty. The parking enforcer that used to work Saturdays, she now refuses to work Saturdays. So we now have, instead of 6 days of parking enforcement, we're now down to 5. So to me, every time I go park on Saturday and I don't pay, I mean, I do feel a little bit more free. I would say, I guess it would be nice if I had started, well, number one, I didn't start the whole Robin Hooding idea. I was kind of like a entrepreneur, if you will, of activism, where I saw a really good idea and I was like, wow, I can really make this work and make it good, and I can build it up and kind of make this work, and it'll be a really cool thing. But I mean, I really didn't have a plan. Like, I would say now my end goal ultimately is I'd like to phase out the parking department. I think that we can have parking downtown without enforcement, and maybe even one huge step in the right direction would be, instead of having meters with time limits, why not just have like a 3-hour time limit? Like, just have a sign there. Like, you can't leave your car here all day. And then eventually, once people saw like, wow, we don't need these meters, maybe they'd say, oh, we don't need these signs either. We can do parking without, having these parking enforcement. And there's a company downtown called Hannah Grimes Entrepreneurial Center, and they have a lot, and it's non-metered, and they will tow your car, like if you leave it there a day or something. But private businesses, they don't want to tow people's car. That's such a bad thing for them, because people will tell their friends like, oh, I was in this lot and my car got towed, and I've seen them put signs on the car, like it says things like, please move your car, it's been here for a day, or we're going to tow it. It's such a stark contrast to some like red and white and black basically threat that you get that tells you that you owe them money. But
I know it's so much nicer to get a letter saying, hey, can you move your car? It's been here for a while. Then, hey, you owe us money.
So I guess I didn't really answer the question, but I didn't really plan an end goal, I guess.
Well, I think it gets the message out in general. Even if there's no end goal for Robin Hooding, the amount of buzz it's created, I think, is well worth the effort of whatever comes from it.
Yeah, and I love too, like I was at a party up in Alstead, New Hampshire, and like there was people there that weren't liberty-minded, and we were just talking, and you know, I'm an accountant by trade, so I met this guy, and he was like an accountant too, so him and I were like nerding out finance, and he mentioned to me like, oh, I was downtown in Keene, because I told him I was from Keene. He's like, I was in Keene, and I got this Robin Hood card on my vehicle, and like I knew I had saved him, and I was like, oh, what do you think about that? And oh, it was so awesome. I used to get tickets down there, and I hated them, and you know, blah blah blah. And then I was like, oh yeah, I saved you, and like I don't know, it was a really nice feeling, but so.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, and my answer is a pretty short one, I'd like to eventually see the total abolition of the parking department. Peacefully, of course, but, you know, I'm a radical. I want to see all branches of government eventually dissolved.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's been successful. I mean, they have been weaning down their hours pretty significantly. They've cut off Saturdays. They don't start till, on average, 10:30 in the morning now, and they stop at 3. And like 1 or 2 days of the week, they hardly even work. So I really think they're in the process of weaning it. They're just weaning themselves off, and they're going to hopefully give it back to the businesses and let the marketplace really run the parking. It's just, you know, and technically you could say, oh, it's just a small issue, but you know, it really is. And like, it winds up being a big issue. Like I said, it is a gateway drug per se, right? I mean, it's just one more avenue that gets people to more ideas of liberty. So something like Robin Hood, even if once again, if it is small, it winds up being a tremendous form of activism. It winds up being really, really big, because of James and these guys and Graham and James put in as many hours as they have. Robin Hood, I mean, it's been a big deal. So.
Hey, small wins are wins. I don't care
it's
how
a huge
small they
win.
are.
Yeah, and you can kind of do direct action without putting in a lot of hours. You could, as I mentioned, do sine waves, and I think one thing I was kind of thinking too. Even if you just talk with your neighbors and your coworkers, I mean, that's kind of direct action. And maybe it's something that you can build up to being a little more open about, I guess, coming out, you know, as a liberty activist. But
I think we've got another question.
I think I saw it mentioned, maybe it was in the hit piece done by the city. I'm just curious.
Which
about
one?
Do you actually pay your Robin Hooders?
So we do receive donations for Robin Hooding, and basically how that works is any excess that over the change amount, you know, does get distributed to the volunteers. So, I mean, they are being paid with the donation money, yes. Any other questions or?
Oh yeah, I was going to add also, Graham's he started partaking in the whole like Spider-Man sniper activism like over this last like week or so. Do you want to fill us in on that, or like?
Yeah, Pumpkin Fest this year is. I've been attending Pumpkin Fest for at least 15 years, and I've never seen snipers there. But this year we noticed there were snipers on several buildings, so myself and James decided we were going to go up there and get some pictures of them. And, you know, you couldn't see their rifles from the ground, but we got up there, and they definitely had rifles.
Yeah, and it was kind of a good story. So we're originally, there were 2 sniper teams on the Colonial building downtown, and I was like, oh, we got to get up there. And I wanted to like ambush interview them and like, hey, who are you guys? And but all the doors were locked. We couldn't get up there. So we found there on the Keene apartments. So, and the door was unlocked. So we kind of went up there, and Graham and I went up, and I had to like hoist him up so he could get the shot. And I was like, you know.
And then I get up there and realized that the camera I was using was crap, so I got back down, used his camera.
Yeah, and I felt that was like a really good spur of the moment kind of direct action where basically we saw something, plainclothes men in teams of 2. I knew what they were. I knew that they were sniper teams. They had spotting scopes. Or
so you hope.
Yeah, and that's one of the most disturbing things about this whole thing. They weren't like clearly identifiable as police, and a lot of the patrolmen we talked to, maybe they weren't telling us the truth, but they claimed that they had no idea that there were sniper teams up there, which I guess is probably not a good idea. If something had happened and they had pulled out a rifle, I mean, maybe there could have been a friendly fire, but And I guess I did some direct action too with Dave Ridley yesterday, and we actually ambush interviewed the city manager, John McLean, about the snipers and some other issues, and he claims he doesn't know anything, so that video will be coming out. Do you have a question, Walter?
Yeah. So suppose I'm living in a dorm on a college campus. What other forms of direct action other than the ones you guys are involved in can I do on a college campus?
So you could. I'm a real big fan of student groups. When I was in college, I wasn't really liberty-minded. I was kind of on my way there, so I don't have any experience in doing this. But I'm very hopeful that the people who do start student groups, like Students for Liberty, and even starting an organization that's maybe not even on the surface liberty-minded. Like, I'm a huge proponent of Bitcoins. Like, you could start a Bitcoin organization and kind of just meet people. And I think if we can get more adoption of Bitcoin, that will work towards liberty. Even though it's kind of not out in the open, you're still going to achieve the goal of more freedom in our lifetime.
Unfortunately, when it comes to like college campuses, the rules sort of change from the rest of the world. I know over here at Keene State, the students basically sign their lives away, and college security can search them whenever they want. They don't have any, Fourth Amendment rights or anything like that. And so if you're going to do any type of direct action type stuff, you'll want to do it off campus, because obviously the school can kick you out of school. So that's probably not high on your list of things to do.
But that would be a good story.
It would be a good story, but it'd probably be a problem down the road for you. But yeah, like James said, obviously any sort of social groups and whatnot, those would probably be relatively benign in the eyes of the school, but it tends to be the major direct action stuff is kind of rough. You'll kind of have to figure out where your limitations are. You'll have to know your school specific rules a little more closely than.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a student, you're kind of disadvantaged in the sense that you have to kind of play by their rules, or I guess they could expel you. So you're at a definite disadvantage, and you got to. I know a lot of schools have free speech zones. Georgia Tech has one where you can hold signs and state your message to people, but it's only during these hours and in this spot. And, people do that. They comply with those rules. So if you want to do something like that, I don't think you probably could do it.
You could do activism on somebody else's campus.
Even as a non-student, you're disadvantaged.
Probably not a good idea.
Some of the activists in Keene have been banned from Keene State College, and I think, Daryl, were you banned or you're threatened?
I was banned for officially 1 month. I didn't find out that the ban was revoked until 3 months after it was revoked.
So I guess for the camera, he said he was banned for a month, and he didn't find out for I guess 3 months after it was revoked. But
yeah, and some of the cop blockers have been threatened with no trespass orders, which was funny because the complaint that came in on us, like the cops showed up and they're like, why did a complaint get called on you guys? Nothing's going on. So like they're saying they're going to give us a trespass order if they get another complaint, but the complaint was a non-complaint. So
that just reminded me of another great form of direct action, chalking. Go out and chalk your message, and it's an easy way to get your message out. And I was thinking about that because I was chalking on like the public sidewalk right next to campus, because Harold and Kumar were coming to town, and they were supporting. Actually, Derek was there. They were supporting Obama, and we were kind of calling them out, like, "Oh, you guys." You do realize that Obama supports the drug war, and there's like, I don't know, half of the arrests or something are marijuana related, and so we were drawing like pot leaves and just putting like a bunch of messages for them to see. But
yeah, it's great that they're in a stoner film and support a guy who does not support.
and unfortunately, colleges don't seem to support, I guess, getting a message out, and really they should be places where you can explore new ideas, talk to people, whether it's about liberty or not. You should be free, I guess, to explore new ideas, and like I said, talk to people. And the few times I've been to Keene State College, one time Daryl and I were doing man-on-the-street interviews, and the campus security came up and they threatened us. They threatened us with arrest for standing on the sidewalk, and I couldn't believe it. Like, did this really just happen? So, I guess you want to come up to the mic?
One organization that I think any college student should probably know about is Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, or FIRE. They're just a good organization to see what they put out and basically know who they are, and because they will help a lot of students who run into problems with their administration.
Yeah. One thing too about the chalk, the bureaucrats really hate chalk. They'll come out and remove it, and it makes really good footage, like them censoring your message.
Like right after you write it, some of the stuff that Graham had somebody following him around. He just wrote on, and the guy's right there, like with a bottle of water, wiping it off. It's really funny.
I think that was actually Garrett.
Oh, did I say Graham? Oh, yeah, Garrett. Garrett was out doing that.
Yeah, it was actually Fred Parcells, the local code enforcement person, was out there following Garrett Ian around, removing his chalk. He was chalking in the downtown. But I guess I had an interesting experience where there's a gentleman at, I think he's like the janitor or something at the court building here. And Graham and myself.
Don't hose me, bro.
Yeah, we had gone out and chalked some Robin Hood stuff. Like I drew like a little snake, like the snake guy, and I put like Jester Mullins, like the city attorney, and I had drawn like the Robin Hood fox and just some other stuff, and Garrett and Graham, and then the guy came out with the hose and he started washing the chalk, or he's about to, and I asked him would he spray me with the hose, and he said no, so I decided I was going to sit down, kind of like make a little stand, and of course he didn't really spray me, he was just spraying around me and getting me wet.
I got sprayed. The back of my jacket was soaked by the time I went back in.
Yeah, and he did one of my nice shirts, a shirt that I really like, he did ruin it. I've tried to wash it like 3 times, so he did unfortunately destroy a shirt of mine, but, you know, I felt that, I guess if you want to watch the video, it's called Don't Hose Me, Bro. I felt like that was a... like it really does show, like if you do direct action, it shows who the aggressor is. Like as long as you remain calm and collected, like if you're just out there filming the police, and I got a video I'm kind of working on right now where I was out for Pumpkin Fest, and the cops were out there in mass, and this kid was walking by with an open container, and he was underage, and when he noticed it was the cops, I'm not entirely clear what happened because I was standing a little bit away. He took off running, and so he like jumped a little fence, and I jumped it too. I'm like turning my camera on, and I'm running with him, and the police actually like passed me, and they tackled the guy, and it's really great footage that I got. I don't think the one officer realized I was there until he'd already done it, but
until after he told the kid to get on your face.
Yeah, so the kid is like, I'm not fighting you, sir. And then the guy slams him on his face, and like if I hadn't been there, that moment never would have been captured. So that's one of the nice things about being out there, I guess, in person. Like, don't get me wrong, I really appreciate the people who produce media and do all the things kind of in behind the scenes, and I think that stuff is great, but we do need people on the streets getting that message out there, doing things. And unfortunately, I guess, it does make some people upset and some people happy. But to me, like if people aren't talking about you, you're not being effective. And I kind of just accept the hate and I accept the love, and you know, whatever you end up doing. You could be standing there with a sign that says peace, and just a peace sign, or you could be standing there, probably like the most innocuous sign you could ever imagine, and people will be like, get a job, and you know, you're always going to have...
Go back to Vermont, hippie.
Yeah, well, the get a job thing's really funny because they yell it out to you at 1 a.m. It's like, Why would I be working at this time of night? I do have a job. That's why I'm not working right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you doing at 1 a.m. on a Friday night? Getting drunk at a bar and watching the Red Sox game?
Yeah, and that's another misconception, especially being on the outside. You would think that our interactions are very confrontational and stuff, but in all actuality, most of the time, we're talking to these people. We know them on a first-name basis. So, I mean, like literally probably 99% of the time we're having very positive interactions. The stuff that really gets blown up is the time where, there's the conflict and whatnot. But, yeah, I believe, I went through my phases. I know when I first got here, I mean, I would see some things and perhaps be angry. I was really angry, I guess, when Derek got pepper sprayed and whatnot. So, but I've just learned from myself. I'm not, and it's not an end-all be-all. Like, if you do get angry over the situation and start screaming at them, I don't think it's the worst of worst things, but it's obviously not going to convey the message that you want. It's not going to be as constructive. So I've tried to, in time, just be a lot more, friendly towards the bureaucrats and stuff. I want, in the event, the day that they have to arrest me, I want them, to really feel guilty about that. I don't want them to feel good about arresting me because I'm always in their face. And I think as things have gone on, the day they have to arrest me, they aren't going to feel good about it. So, I mean, so I guess my own point is, so I mean, our interactions are generally very positive with the bureaucrats, so.
So I guess Mr. Freerock had a good idea. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we use kind of when we're out there. I kind of learned about the Free State Project through Dave Ridley, watching his videos, and so I kind of learned a lot from him. But typically, I like to have an audio recorder going the whole time when I'm out in public, and usually I had the video camera going as well. And we also have walkie-talkies. Could you hold yours up? And if you're out with a group of people, the walkie-talkie is a very important tool you can use to communicate. And it's better than a cell phone in the sense that, number one, it's instant. If you need to put something out immediately, like there's something going on here, it's like that. You don't have to call anyone. You're not like typing on the text. You just put it out there. Number two, if you're with a group of people, maybe there's 5 of you out there and then a few more come out. They can just tune to the channel, and then you're communicating with everyone. So let's say something happened and you're kind of in little groups. You'd have to call group 1 on the phone and tell them, oh, this is happening here. And then you have to call group 2. So it's kind of inefficient. And so I feel like the walkie-talkies are a great tool. And I think we're sold out of them right now. But I know Ian had a few that he sold. And that's definitely something that needs to get in the hands of people. They're such a good tool, whether you're doing a sine wave where you're at multiple spots. When we were at the DUI checkpoint, we had a south team and a north team, and then we had a team I guess with eyes on at the checkpoint, filming them there. So we had our north team and south team diverting people if they wanted to. I'd always give them the choice. I'd tell them how to detour if they stopped, or sometimes they'd see the sign and they'd be like, yeah, and they would detour automatically. But having those walkie-talkies really made a huge difference in that when something was happening, you could kind of keep everyone up to date. So a couple of us rolled through the checkpoint. I think I rolled through twice. And as you're going through, you're saying, hey, we're coming up to it now. We just got stopped. You can kind of keep people aware of what's going on.
Of course, the checkpoint is also a good example of bad communication when this guy got arrested and didn't call anyone on the radio and didn't film.
Called, nobody responded. That was
well, that's no good.
My favorite radio story was Graham got arrested and the police took his cell phone away, but he has radio on his belt, and they didn't remove the radio, so he's in the back of the police car. He's handcuffed. He was able to grab his radio and call out on it that, hey, I'm being arrested, help me.
It was great because he saw me on my radio at first and didn't really care, and then he hears Ian's voice and he just jerks his head around. It's like, oh God, one of these people.
Do you have any other tools? I think another important thing is if you're going out and doing things at night, it's important to have a video camera that can do well in low light. A lot of cameras, you can kind of adjust the settings where you can like lower the frames per second. There's more light that comes in each frame. I'm a big fan of Sony. They have like a night shot mode that makes a world of difference. Like if you are out filming at night, I think it's good to have that good important camera. If you're operating at night too, it's a really good idea to have a flashlight and maybe a reflective vest. If you're at like the DUI checkpoint, we had reflective vests so people could see us.
It was hilarious watching like 10 people walk down the road with reflective vests and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, I absolutely love DUI activism. I know it's something that some people are mixed on, but it's something for me it's instant gratification of helping people out. And I know a lot of people, it all boils down to personal responsibility at the end of the day, and society or government, as you will, tells people that they don't have that choice, right, to deem their own risks. I guess people have that ability to manage their own risks on a day-to-day basis from the time you leave the house. So, yeah, people might make the bad decision of drinking and driving, but at the end of the day, that is their risk, and they're going to be accountable in the event they hurt somebody. But for people to go in there and start giving people DUIs, I've seen, I mean, theoretically speaking, you could say more people's lives have been ruined as a result of DUIs than DUI people have killed, and it's the whole notion that somehow the law prevents people from being killed. It's generally speaking, the people that are driving blackout drunk are going to be doing that whether the law is there or not. So, yeah, I feel really good about DUI active. I've had too many friends like go through the hell of having a DUI. My sister going to jail, it was like her first DUI, and and it was for business. She was a business meeting, and next thing you know, she had to put a breathalyzer in her car, and and all this crap, and she had to hide it from her work, or else she'd be fired. But I mean, it ruins people. I mean, it's immeasurable how many people have probably committed suicide or whatever as a result of having DUIs. Yeah, I guess.
But it's not even the DUIs. Like they say it's a DUI checkpoint, but they write 20 times more tickets for random things, and they're looking for marijuana or whatever. So we all know the DUI checkpoint is not actually a DUI checkpoint because they're looking for everything else, even though they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, I've always liked checkpoint activism for the same reason I like Robin Hooding. It's one of the few ways you can actually stop their enforcement. Like, I mean, cop blocking is fun, yes, but when they're on camera, they're probably still going to issue a ticket. They might do it with a smile on their face. They're not going to beat the kid up, but they're still making their money. Whereas with checkpoint activism, you can warn people and they can go the other way. Or with Robin Hooding, you just drop a dime in the meter and they don't get their money.
Well, I'd chime in real quick. Sometimes in CopBlock, you can, like if someone is interacting with the police, there's a girl, she was like underage, and they were looking for like an open container and drugs or something. And I told her, you don't have to consent to a search. And, oh, okay. She was like, oh, okay. And you know what I mean? So basically,
I had rights.
Yeah, that's one way you can kind of intervene there.
Yeah, but even with doing CopBlock, sometimes if you're out there filming, the result may be a little different than what it might have been. There's been times where we have seen, a guy was a little too drunk to drive, and he, instead of he wasn't driving at the time. He was just near his car. And usually if you're drunk out in downtown, they'll put you into protective custody. But we showed up at the time, and instead of doing that, they just took his keys and said they'd be back in 4 hours to give him back his keys. And then there was another time, there was a guy who was, he was passed out behind a dumpster. They have already PC'd like 6 people that night, but we weren't there for those. And then this last guy, instead of putting him in protective custody, they dropped him off at a friend's house. So you can affect the outcome just being there, and it might not be as severe, or might be even a positive outcome instead of what might have happened if you weren't there to record the interaction to begin with.
Did you have a question?
Which is definitely why I like and participate in cop blocking. I guess the difference for me is that with Robin Hooding, like, this is a way you can actually take money out of their hands.
It's quantity. There's a lot. Yeah, you get a lot more.
Yeah, and it's the seen versus the unseen, kind of what Daryl was talking about. Did you have a question?
I got a question from, I'm going to channel a question from one of the opponents to some of this direct action. It has been called poisoning the well. For instance, others have said that this sort of activism is ruining their chances, you're ruining it for the rest of us, those people who only want to go and ask politicians to do things for them. You guys are helping out the rabble, but you're not doing anything for the respectables, so what does it matter if, a bunch of drunk college kids like what you're doing? Aren't you ruining it for the rest of the liberty activism movement?
I guess my response to that question would be, I feel like I'm kind of... When I'm out there, I definitely know that I'm making an impact, whether I can see it right then or not. And I do feel like I'm kind of planting the ideas of liberty. And another important aspect I would say is doing activism, direct action, is recruitment. I mean, I'm a military guy. I was involved with the Army, and they don't put the quartermaster on the recruitment ad. They put the Green Berets, the Rangers, because that stuff is exciting. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate all the political activism, and I appreciate people testifying at the State House. But I think the sad reality is that, I hate to say it's boring, but to a lot of people that is boring.
It's boring to me. I wouldn't do it, but I do appreciate the people who do it. Seriously.
I don't want to say it's boring, but I don't feel that people are going to get excited about liberty by watching a State House hearing. I mean, I'd rather spend my time out on the streets for 4 hours than spend 4 hours watching a legislative session. I mean, maybe that's just me.
No, it's not.
Well, I think now in the day of 5-minute video clips or less, there's what are you going to watch? That's kind of the problem now, is what's going to get more attention. And it's not necessarily that we're seeking attention, but it tends to be the things that most people see, because there is everything else is going on too, but nobody cares and nobody's paying attention.
Yeah, and Repsher brought up the point. There's so many interactions with people that, are boring, and they get posted and they go nowhere, but it really is like that conflict and controversy that drives the hits, and that's what people want to watch. Whether that's, I guess, a sad fact or not, and that's what gets people excited. Like I remember on Derek J's victimless crime spree, he went to the college, and he's asking that one gentleman questions, and then the lady comes up and she's like, "We're having a silent protest," and to me that made the footage all worth it. It was kind of interesting, watching Derek ask the guy questions. And what really made that footage magical, though, was that lady coming up and wow, did this guy was talking before, now he's not talking. And of course Derek, he joked. I think he said, "Does this lady own you?" And it was just so epic and funny. But
yeah, that's one thing I learned early on is, no matter what form of activism, you're not going to make everybody happy, and it's amazing. It doesn't matter what you do, people are going to be upset at it. And I've just learned over the years, I usually will support my friends on any form of activism that they do. And there's some that I prefer more than others, but I don't know where I was going with that, but
yeah, Repsher pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. Any kind of activism you do ever, it doesn't matter what it is, there are always going to be critics of it.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Will?
I want to say a few things on the DUI, but I also want to add to that, literally anything. I've had people tell us back during the Ron Paul campaign that we shouldn't be hanging banners over the freeway because it's illegal, and because the banner could fall down and cause a car wreck, and then we'd be liable. There's
Think about the children.
No activism you can do that someone doesn't come up with a stupid reason why you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
and on the DUI checkpoints, we do them in Manchester, and it has been the single. The Robin Hooding has gotten phenomenal positive response, but I would say even percentage-wise, the DUI checkpoints are higher. It's in the high 90% of people that wave, smile, circle back around to tell us, "You guys are awesome. Thanks for doing this. Give us money. Ask where they can find us online. Park their car and come out and hold signs with us." really just amazing response. The number of people who've been negative, I can tell you who they are. The president of the Mothers Against Drunk Driving chapter, okay, in New Hampshire, who stopped to yell at me. The tow truck drivers, who we cost them a ton of business every time that we're out there. A couple of off-duty cops, and the taxi cab drivers who literally the people who were costing money are the people who are unhappy about it.
Sounds like the people at the Bearcat trial or the Bearcat hearings. Only the people in favor were the bureaucrats.
And Bradford Hutchinson.
The statistics are that if they really wanted to crack down on to stop DUIs for safety, that just roaming patrols is actually way more effective than the actual checkpoint. We check their numbers. Their numbers of the number of people they stop that are actually drunk is in anywhere from 1% to 3%. And I don't see how anyone in this country can support stopping 97% of innocent people for a 3% success rate. It's against everything. I mean, forget libertarian values. It's against everything that America says it's about being innocent until proven guilty, and the rights of the individual and the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure, the whole thing. It's absolutely nonsense that they're doing that. So we also have I was going to tell you about the laser. Well, that's all. Anyways, it's been really, really good activism, I think, direct action.
Have you guys had checkpoints lately? I haven't seen one since we had one.
It's been a few months, but we keep track. We had actually 1 week where we had 2 back-to-back. So whenever they have them in Manchester, we're there.
I guess going on your idea, Will, that like if you do anything, people are going to be upset with you. I mean, everyone knows that's true. Even on Facebook, if you post like a picture, like, and there's someone that will be like, I don't like this, or you know what I mean, or YouTube video, I guess people will click the do not like button. So I mean, if you're going to do things, people are not going to like it. And one of the important things I think is, if you're going to be an activist, you, like I said, you just got to accept the hate. There are going to be haters out there. You know, I don't really think about them. If someone, like I said, if someone has concerns about what I'm doing, I try to be receptive. But I mean, if they're just going to hate, I just don't worry about it.
Of course, I find a lot of it's just the hate stems from the lack of information or misinformation about what's actually going on and what the point is, and just a lot of assumptions taken from the small amount of information that they have. They don't have the whole story and whatnot.
I heard you guys walk around topless, smoking pot, open carrying downtown. You people are why I can't bring my children to Keene anymore.
Yeah, and I've done none of those things, I think. Maybe open carry a few times.
I've smoked pot in Central Square at 420, but that's about it. No toplessness or guns for me. But
even the 420 rallies, I'm not a big drug user myself, quote, but I felt that it was such a powerful thing, because it does get a discussion started. Like, people are talking about it, and they're saying, wow. And it's such a powerful statement that, yeah, we're out here smoking cannabis. There's nothing wrong with it. And that really is the only way, I think, to get people to talk about it. Like, it's going back to that point before where, I mean, they have the legislative process and people come and testify, but the average person, like in the Keene area at least, the average person living here, they don't really see any of that testimony. But they do, if you say 420, they're likely to know what you're talking about. So, I mean, it was such a powerful movement that was going on here.
This will be the last question.
The last question.
All right, Abel, you got it.
What was I going to say? You distracted me. Look what you did. Oh, damn it.
You can check out my show.
I guess
Yeah, I wanted to.
Will's got the last one.
The other thing that I was going to say about the DUI situation is that the state makes a ton of money selling alcohol. They put their alcohol stores on the highway to make sure that they get maximum profit from it. And any other business would be forced to pay their own the costs, right? They're putting those costs out into society. If you want to look at it that way, then out of the profits that they make off liquor, they could easily be providing free transportation, free. It would cost out of their profits, but they could get people home from the bars safely. They choose not to. Also, many times when someone's driving or feels that they're a little impaired, what they would like to do is maybe pull over to the shoulder and drive home slowly. But you know what happens if you do that? Then you're guaranteed the DUI. So you have to try to pretend like you're okay and keep up to speed and drive instead of driving slowly and safely like you would if they weren't out hunting you.
Or if you decide you want to sleep it off in the parking lot and it's freezing outside and you want to start the engine to keep it warm a little bit. You're driving.
Oh. Yes, now you're in actual physical control of the vehicle. You can't even sleep it off. So they, far from actually trying to prevent accidents, they actually push people into unsafe situations. They sell them the liquor. They push them by kicking them out of the bar at last call, all onto the streets at the same time. They don't let you drive home safely. They don't let you sleep in your car. And then they go, oh my God, people are driving drunk. It's unsafe. We have to do something about it. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Actually, thanks for bringing up the state liquor stores, because you reminded me of one of my favorite forms of direct action, like going and singing and getting your message out that way. I was really impressed. So I've done the singing thing a little bit, but I really love watching the old videos of like the caroling and the Shire Choir in action and street theater too. You know, if you want to watch some great street theater, Lauren Canario and Jim Johnson, they lay siege to the IRS building. Like they dress up as knights and like they have a cardboard. I mean, that stuff is great, and that's something that you could, I guess, go out and kind of get your message out in a playful way that I'm sure will get people talking.
Should we have the federal building snowball fight again this year? Somebody
down.
said that yet? Did you do that? I don't know where the federal building is here.
In there, I think there's one in Manchester that's actually named after me, James Cleveland. Concord, okay. Yeah, so maybe we could go do an event like that. That'd be fun.
Will, just real quick, in response to what you were saying about liquor and the way the state handles it, it reminds me of this image there's somewhere on the internet. A guy gets a brick through his window, and it says, "Need window repair? Call this number."
Attached to the brick.
But yeah, one point I wanted to make, when it comes to activism, you're going to get a whole bunch of different takes throughout the liberty movement on what's the correct form. Everybody has different ideals and what's the right way to go about it. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's all you can really do is, I think it's good to communicate and try to come up with more constructive ways, or the most constructive way as possible. But at the end of the all you can do is be the change you wish to see in the world, as cliche as that is. But just focus on yourself. Don't worry about the collective so much as like how society is going to view, like say, people are doing this form of activism, so it's going to represent all of us. And, you know, in a sense, by being so afraid of being collectivized, you almost become the collectivist in a sense. So I just think all you can do is just do what you believe is right, and I guess be that change, I guess.
And know that everybody else is going to collectivize you anyways.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You might as well.
And it's inevitable, right? I mean, So.
Yeah, I guess my final thought, I've heard this attributed to, I think it's Russell Canning. If people are saying like you're doing it wrong, you should do it this way, that's a good idea. You should show us how to do it. You know what I mean? I'm all for competition. I think that if people have a better, maybe Robin Hooding isn't perfect, and if someone has a suggestion or something, I love to hear it. But I'd be more impressed if people show me, implement your ideas. I'd love to see other people get active. I mean, and like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. It could be an hour a week. You could start easy, and I just encourage people to give it a try. And you may not see the results immediately, but like the Robin Hooding is a good example. eventually those donations start coming in. It starts picking up momentum. And it does make a huge difference in people's lives. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Wow, what a great panel. Lots of expertise, lots of in the streets, boots on the ground experience, exactly what I was hoping for. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time on that. JJ, can we break for like 5 minutes, maybe give folks some time to hit the restroom? I want to make sure everybody's back here in time for JJ, our closing speaker for the day, our keynote speech. He'll be talking about Free State Now, which is something that he's involved in, and his path to liberty, as well as his experiences here in New Hampshire as an old school mover. And of course, if you like it old school, we'll have the old school panel tomorrow with Johnny Ray and an all-female panel, which will be a lot of fun. That's happening tomorrow morning, so you're going to want to make sure you don't sleep in for that. So be right back. I'll vamp a little bit more here, and we'll tell you about the raffle that's going on tonight. I believe Derek J. will be dating someone in this room and will be serenading someone in this room. So it's some exciting raffle going on here. We'll tell you more about that in a moment.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeene.com. Freekeene.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeene.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeene.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.